53% of Americans are concerned about their mental health during this COVID crisis. It makes sense, doesn't it? 53% for various reasons, and of course, various struggles. And wouldn't you know it, that most of the people who are suffering this way, yes, they are indeed women. Who would have thought that? Women struggling so much from our situation right now in so many different ways. So you know what that means? It means jackpot time to finding that inner strength. It does. And it also means jackpot time in making the most of that inner strength that we all have. In other words, making it count. Now, how exactly do we do that? You might be asking. Well, I narrow it down to 3 steps altogether. That first step, of course, is to identify the struggles that you are encountering. That's the easiest step, right? And I'm talking not just struggles like, you know, you got that speeding ticket or you got into a fight with your teenage kid. Those are certainly struggles. I'm talking about what are some of the biggest struggles you've experienced in your lifetime. We're talking things about like illness, like accidents, like loss of a loved one unexpectedly, a relationship gone bad, divorce, or losing a job, things like that, things that we're becoming all too familiar with right now. On the surface, of course, all these things are awful, seemingly unfair, which would make you ask the question, why is this happening to me? Have you ever asked that, right? That brings us to step 2 here. Identify the strength or gift associated with that struggle. And of course, this is a little bit more challenging. And the more you do it, the more practice you get, the easier it's going to become. And I guarantee you it is so empowering. So I'm going to give you a few examples in my own life of how to do that, how to identify the strength or gift associated with struggles. And that means you're going to dig deep here. And if you Google the gift of struggle, experts will tell you again and again, there are gifts that come with every struggle. And that comes down to what I'm saying here. When you recognize those gifts, that's when you know you have tapped into your inner strength. And that is precious. And finally, that brings us into when you tap into it, it's time to put that power of inner strength to work to make that struggle count for something good in this world. The alternative, ladies, is to let your suffering, let your pain, let all that go down in vain. And for us as women, that's just not an option. We don't have time for things to be wasted. We want to make everything count. We're efficient and we're smart and we know how to do that. So discovering your inner strength, of course, it happens at different stages in life for everyone. For some people, it happens very young. For some people, it's right before they check out, okay? So I started to really tap into mine when I was in my 30s, what I call my drama decade, to give you a bigger look at the entire picture here. My drama decade began in my 30s. It was in my 30s. And to give you the entire picture, let's go back to this. My dream since the time I was 12 years old was to do this, to work in television news. I was fascinated by it. So I worked so hard through high school and through college, learning all I could about broadcast journalism. Nose to the grindstone, hardly ever straying or doing anything I shouldn't be doing. Yeah, that meant this much social life because all my time was spent, again, learning about broadcast journalism. That meant during spring break and stuff like that, I would be knocking on doors at TV stations and radio stations saying, please let me in, come let me see what's going on there. Let me work for you. In fact, I'll pay you to work for you. And of course, you guys know, I know a lot of you guys know that kind of commitment. And yeah, that kind of commitment is very important and it pays off. And for me, it paid off. Only a couple months after graduating from college, I landed that job, that dream job in my dream career in TV news. And I was so excited and I got to work. And then, I started to realize, oh my gosh, this is really tough. When you begin in TV news, you move from city to city, leaving behind family and friends again and again. You work out in the cold and the snow and the sleet and the blistering heat because, yeah, someone's got to do it. You work crazy hours, nights, weekends, holidays, overnights. News never stops. And of course, when you are the newbie, you are the person who's going to be doing this. And I can't tell you how many times I had to hide behind police car doors, knowing that bullets could start flying at any time when I'm covering standoffs with the bad guys, which happened a lot. And as far as the money in TV news, when you begin, oh my goodness, it is absolutely pitiful. Yes. So the more this reality sunk in, the more I thought, okay, bring it on. The more I was sure I wanted TV news to be my forever and for all to see. And I knew that if I worked hard enough and worked long enough, eventually it would have to get a little easier, right? So about 5 years into my career, it got easier. I finally landed my job back here in my home state of Ohio, surrounded again by family and friends, working a steady shift, a Monday through Friday job, eventually anchoring, which meant not having to hide behind police car doors quite as much, and making some money. Oh, my dream, it was coming to fruition beyond my imagination. And then finally, when all that was happening, everything comes to a screeching halt. I develop a cold. I go to the doctor, hoping to just get some kind of medicine, some kind of relief, and then be on my way. He puts the stethoscope to my chest, and this awful look comes over his face. I'm thinking, come on, doctor, I have to go to work. What's going on here? Let's move along. He steps back and he looks at me and he says, Catherine, I have to tell you, I think we have much more than a cold that we're dealing with right now. Next thing I know, it is time for open heart surgery. Yeah, my drama decade. I was 31 years old, and until then I had no idea I was born with a significantly defective heart that was threatening my life. Being rolled into the operating room, I remember seeing my family standing at the operating room doors. Back then, they could come that far, and watching my dad nearly fall to his knees. And it struck me how terrified I was. I wasn't meant for this. I couldn't do this. They're rolling me into the operating room, and I'm still very conscious, and I look around and I could hear all the medical instruments clanking, and I saw that shining light up there on the ceiling. I'm surrounded by the OR staff. They're all gowned up, doing their things, getting ready. The chattering is going on, and I decide, no, I'm not doing this. I can't do this. I burst out. I'm okay, you guys. I don't need to do this. I changed my mind. You know what? I even started running. I can run almost 3 miles now. So just let's go back. I'm not going to do this. One man then leans over me, and we all know this now. All we see are masks, so we really look at eyes. And his eyes were so kind, and he says, honey, when you're done with this, you will be able to run a marathon. A marathon. Well, that reminded me of this guy that I met in the park who told me he ran a marathon. And I thought it was incredible and how much I would absolutely love to go run a marathon, but I knew there'd be no way. I mean, I could hardly do the 3 miles. And of course, then in retrospect, it was because my heart wasn't working. So run a marathon. I'm thinking, okay, let's do this. Next thing I know, I am in the recovery room, and then I'm on my healing journey, a long healing journey. And slowly, I make it back to work, to my dream job. I'm happy again. And then finally I'm thinking, okay, let's try out this new and improved heart. I started to run a little bit. And then I started to run a lot. And then I find that Rick guy from the park, and I ask him to help me train to run the Chicago Marathon. Well, he was there not only to help me train for the Chicago Marathon, but to help me to run with me through it. And our next finish line would be at the altar. Yeah, I got to marry that guy. And what a fascinating journey that all was. But I have to tell you, when you think about that, this struggle, open heart surgery, having heart disease that threatened your life, it turned out the most incredible gifts. The most obvious, of course, this loving husband, but just as important, a realization that I had an inner strength to survive, me to survive. I would have never thought that I could get through something like that, like my chest being cracked open on the heart and lung machine, ladies, for 7 hours. It was a long surgery. On the ventilator, the chest tube, the whole thing. I was able to do that. That made me an official survivor. The gifts that came with having to have open heart surgery. And of course, it all sealed by finishing that marathon. And then big bonus here. It gave me the gift of being able to give hope to others. So many people in my life ended up heart patients, and now I could actually be there for them, to guide them and to support them, and if nothing else, just to represent heart disease survivability. Some precious things that came from that. And then just a few years later, I started to have trouble breathing. I first noticed it when I was running, and then I noticed it just while I was climbing a flight of stairs in my own house, and then on the set anchoring. I could hardly get through my stories. I could hardly get enough breath. So treatment after treatment, it wasn't getting any better. In fact, it was getting worse. And again, then I had to put my dream career on hold, and I found myself in a hospital bed. I needed breathing treatments just to get out a full sentence. No one could figure it out. But then finally, the specialist comes in and he shows me these x-rays. And he says, look at your lungs. They are filling up with something. We need to get to this right away. We're going to go to lung surgery, and you're going to have a biopsy. So then they cut open my back for that. Thoughts of cancer, of lung transplant come rushing through my head. It was kind of making the whole heart thing seem not that bad. And I sit back and I say, doctor, am I going to live? Kind of jokingly. I didn't expect this. He sits back, and again, I've got another doctor with this awful look on his face, and he can only say, 1 day at a time, dear. Oh, those are some long days of not knowing, about 3 months worth before it was finally determined this monstrous experimental drug therapy I was on, it was working against this mysterious lung illness I developed. And indeed, I was going to live. Great news, for sure. But how about this? I had also realized during this time of not knowing, as much as I was determined to fight, to tap into that inner strength I found with the heart disease, I came to terms with the idea there could be a different outcome this time. And I was okay with that. I had tapped into my inner faith, the ultimate inner strength, and mixed the fact in that I actually survived that lung illness. That faith was taken to an even higher level, giving me precious insight and inspiration to offer whenever and wherever I can and incorporate in everything I do. The gift here, though, the bonus here, is understanding that there are some things you just can't control. Until the lung disease, I didn't really know that. So a sense of peace and well-being was integrated into my life with this crazy lung illness nightmare that I went through. So again, yay, back to work, back to life, feeling more blessed than ever. And now, if you're tired of hearing about health issues, here's something different. The following Christmas morning, getting ready for a house full of guests. We are so happy, and we have so much to be thankful for that year. I'm running around doing little odds and ends, and I notice there's a message on my answering machine. And when I hit play, life takes another big turn.
Hey, Rick and Catherine, or should I say Rick and Kathy from Kent. Just want to let you know that the video from Girls Gone Wild has hit the Youngstown area. You're being shown Catherine or Kathy from Kent, as you know. I guess that's your stage name. It's being shown from everywhere from Channel 21 to Irish Pods to Royal Oaks Bar and Grill. Everyone's seen you in your full entire. Honey, your days are over. You think you're such a prissy little bitch, but your days are over. Have a very Merry Christmas.
I can kind of hear a bit of a collective sigh there. And I have to tell you, even 16 years later, every time I hear that message, and I hear it a lot these days, my heart sinks a bit. And all this time later, I have no idea who left that message, but I knew exactly what she was talking about right away. It was that night in Key West, Florida. I was on vacation with my husband. We were there to celebrate two things. First of all, our 1-year anniversary, yay. And secondly, of course, that I was still alive, my lung disease survival. We were there during spring break and we were just walking down the main street one evening. I'm still on heavy medication treating this lung illness. And I look around at all the college kids and I hear all the music coming and the great breeze going over the island. And I'm thinking, life is good. And I've got yet another chance at it. And I turn to my husband and I say, I'm going to live it to the fullest. I'm going to go do things I would have never done before. That night, we walk into a bar that's going to have, of all things, a wet t-shirt contest. Okay, I'm in my 30s. This goody two-shoes has never even seen a wet t-shirt contest. Neither had my husband. At least that's what he said. And now there's this guy on the stage and he's soliciting women to take part. And I'm thinking, I'm going to do things I would have never done before. I'll do it. Oh boy, did I do it. What was I thinking? And the whole thing just got out of hand, got out of control. And right afterwards, I felt awful about it. I'll never forget that walk back to our hotel room. I was in tears that I could let myself get so caught up in a moment. But don't we all sometimes get caught up in a moment? My husband felt bad too, so we made a pact. We'll leave it in Key West. We'll learn from it and never do anything like that again. Now back then, I'm sure some of you remember we had these little flip phone things, right? The not so smart phones. We were just learning how to take pictures with these things. We didn't know what to do with those pictures once we had them. There was nothing like social media around back then. There was, however, the foundation of it all. What is that? When I talk to college students and high school kids, they say, MySpace. The foundation of it all is the internet. Little did I know there were a couple of people there from a couple of major websites, one similar to Girls Gone Wild, documenting the whole thing with pictures and video. That decision I made that night in Key West, it cost me my dream job. I was fired. It cost me some friends and it cost me any sense of self-respect. This video and these pictures, they were going from website to website to website, going viral before we even had that term. Comments were pouring in by the hundreds every day. And a lot of them were supportive. But the ones I focused on were the ones that said I was stupid and ugly and had no reason to live. I was starting to believe them. They were sinking into my soul. And suddenly, I am getting inundated with requests from media all over the country, all over the world, actually, wanting to interview me with that question, what were you thinking? And there I find myself sitting on the set of Good Morning America across from my idol, Diane Sawyer, sharing my shame with her and the world, and trying to explain my mindset that night and trying to apologize for that poor choice and trying to raise a bit of a red flag about how this is symbolic of our privacy coming under attack in this day of digital everything. My phone would not stop ringing. I am getting invited to appear on shows like Oprah, like Inside Edition, like The O'Reilly Factor. It goes on. And even David Letterman, you guys, I ended up being the topic of his top 10 list. This was about me. I couldn't believe it. And even at our own home, there was no place to hide. People would drive by honking their horns, yelling awful things out their car windows. I was certainly being, in this respect, I was being bullied. And as far as what was going on online, I was being what today we call cyberbully. And like so many who endure that today, I wanted to die. Such a contrast to my mindset when I was enduring those illnesses. In fact, I had a plan on how to make it all happen. It was that bottom drawer where we kept leftover pain medicine, powerful stuff from previous surgeries that would certainly do the job. Thankfully, just in time, that newfound faith and determination to survive, those two new levels of inner strength that I have found, they kick in, backed up by family and friends. And then another level of inner strength starts to surface that I never knew I had, apparently. Courage. And I fought back. 3 successful federal lawsuits later, including one against, of all people, Larry Flint and Hustler magazine. This was so surreal. I got control of my life back again. I got copyright ownership to all of those images from Key West, then giving me legal means to stop the dissemination and get as much of it off of the internet as possible. But we all know, no matter how many times you hit delete, once it's out there, to some degree, it's out there forever and for all to see. And for me, that means that my lawyers can't quite get to some websites on the deep, dark side of the web or obscure websites overseas. But with what I learned from the lung disease, with that bonus, that new strength from the lung disease, some things you just have to come to terms with. You can't control, you just have to leave it go. And in the middle of it all, how about this? A TV station came to my rescue and gave me a second chance, gave me a chance to reclaim my career and to get back to work. And that was fantastic. And again, yeah, I got back to work feeling more blessed than ever. A couple of years though, a few years ago, while I'm anchoring the noon and the morning show, I'm starting to read these stories that are really starting to get to me. I'm reading stories about people who are taking their own lives as a result of online cruelty or social media drama. We hear about it all the time, and I couldn't stand it. And I kept thinking to myself, if I could have just talked to these people and shared my story, shared my inner strength, maybe they could see more clearly that just like so many illnesses, online humiliation is survivable too. And it could bring out some great things in you once you get past it. You'll find more inner strength as well. In my darkest moments during what I called my naked nightmare, I promised God and I promised myself, if I survived, someday I'd find a way to make that struggle, that was my own fault, make that count too for something good in this world. Well, my contract was coming up and I made the call then to use that multi-tiered inner strength I found over the years, survival, faith, and courage, to step away from my dream career, at least on a full-time basis, and share my story as a speaker all over the country, starting with my TEDx talk. And ladies, it's been incredible, an incredible journey. Because this story, it works as a game-changing cautionary tale, raising awareness that today there is so little room for that what was I thinking moment like I had before it could become attached to you forever and for all to see one mouse click away, no matter what age, no matter what walk of life. We are all vulnerable. And just as important, that story serves as an inspirational tale that this new brand of humiliation, it is survivable. And I use what I call my PACT strategy, which can also be useful in getting through any kind of struggle, including some of the most common challenges we face today. In fact, it may be a formula to help you on your way to finding your inner strength through our current times. So PACT, yes, the big acronym here. And this is one of my favorite parts of my presentation that I give especially to high school and college students. PACT, P stands for people. When you're going through something that's tough, you need to engage those people who you trust and you love the most. The last thing you want to do is go off and try to deal with this alone without help, going to someone to give you a little bit of a new perspective, or just someone there to support you. It's time to engage your army when you're going through those tough times. And maybe that army for you is just that one person, but that one person can be a lifesaver. A stands for abandon. Absolutely. Abandon the source of cruelty, the source of pain, the source of stress. That means if it's coming at you online, close up shop, get off of that platform. If it's happening in some social circle, step away. If it's happening because you keep going to your bank account and saying, oh my gosh, and it's causing you tremendous stress, step away from it. Take a breath. The more you focus on those things that are bringing bad things into your life, the worse they're going to seem. That brings us to C, which is connect. Connect with professionals who can help you through. And there are so many professionals out there, and there is such a movement to make a difference and to help people rise above and even discuss situations that we could never discuss before. Connect, connect, connect. And my favorite, this too shall pass. Will you say it with me again? This too shall pass. It is so important. You know, I'm sure that all of you can say that you have been through situations, of course, that you thought you would never make it through, right? You were sure this is the end of me. And what happened? You got past that situation. You're right here. And when you dig a little deeper, it becomes very clear just how that situation did make you stronger. It made you wiser, and it made you more equipped to help others and make a difference in this big bad world. So who knew the top 3 events in my life I would never change? Heart disease, lung disease, and my global humiliation. Of course, I have to say, my wedding has to be up there somewhere too as an event that I would never change. With this though, you guys, I encourage you to take inventory of the top 3 struggles in your life. Write them down. Reflect on the inner strength or gifts you found in each of them. The more you do it, the easier it's going to be to see those gifts and to see those strengths, and the more empowering it's going to be. And it is so rewarding. And then reframe it all into a shape that can somehow, maybe even in the smallest way, be of value to others. By taking this journey, by finding and using your unique inner strength, can you feel it? You'll be giving yourself and the world the most incredible gift of all. You'll be making it count. Thank you so much, ladies, for listening. I'm Catherine Bosley, and I'm glad now to open it up to questions.